and it's killing me slowly. Why can't I stop? Why can't I stop? This just doesn't make any sense. If these things are bad for me and I can see the physical effects of them, why can't I stop? So that's when the penny started to drop. It's just like, this has to be an addiction, because it's like, I don't want to be fat. I do not want to be fat. I hate living in that body and having to navigate the world showing up that way. So why can't I just get it together? And people will tell you, just eat less and move more. If it was that simple, it would be done. You know what I mean? There would be no fat people. But it was those things that I was hooked on, and that I'd always go back to. And there's a slippery slope, and I had to understand what my triggers were that would take me along that road and that progression.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, just want to welcome you to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. And this episode is brought to you by Sober Strong Apparel. Sober Strong Apparel makes heavyweight premium gear for people who take sobriety seriously. 10% of every order goes back to recovery centers. Sober Strong also runs an impact sponsorship program that puts gear directly into facilities for people just starting out. So if you're sober curious, or have a loved one in sobriety or recovery, check out SoberStrongApparel.com. Go use Rock Bottom, all one word, capital letters, as the code at checkout for 15% off. It's now 15% off. Great quality clothing. It looks good. Love the brand. Love what it stands for. I love that it gives back to the recovery community, and just feel the mission. Love this brand. SoberStrongApparel.com. Enjoy this episode. All right. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Brian. I'm here with my guest today, Arlene Piper-Allen.
I'm great. Thank you.
Arlene, how you doing? Doing well. So yeah, generally this podcast, we talk a lot about recovery. A lot of the times we're discussing drugs, alcohol, things like that. But I figured today, we were able to get connected on Instagram, and I figured today we could talk about a little bit about food addiction and what you're doing now. So kind of go into the past and talk about your experience with food addiction, because it is an addiction, and there's so many more addictions and things people are dealing with out there that aren't just drug and alcohol related. And I figured we could mix it up a little bit today, talk about something that we haven't gone into enough on this podcast. And I figured you were the person that could help me out with that.
I hope so.
And we'll talk about that today. And let's start off with a little bit of basic facts about you. Like, how long ago did you overcome your food addiction?
Overcome.
Because we usually do sober dates. What would your food addiction date be?
I guess I don't really have a date. I think I hit a weight that I was satisfied with, and that was probably in May of last year. But I have been battling obesity my entire adult life and like most of my teenage years. So it's kind of been an ongoing thing. And I don't even feel like I'm really out of the woods yet, but I think where I am is at a place of awareness that I've never been before. So this is why I feel like, okay, I've overcome something, kind of got over some kind of a hump, but only time will tell just, how long I'm able to really maintain it and put what I've learned into practice to make sure that I don't regress and things don't go in the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad you bring up the word awareness. We're definitely going to go into that too a little bit later. But first and foremost, I would love to know just a little bit about the early days, what your childhood was like, your parents, what your relationships were like, siblings and all that, going to school, and kind of lead me into when you started to realize your relationship with food was unhealthy.
So I was born in the UK, in London, and at the age of 5, my family immigrated to America, and so I was raised in Texas, and I'm back in the UK now, so I've been in the UK since 2008. So growing up, I'm a mother now, I have 2 children, and I hate to blame my mother, but that's kind of where it all, kind of stems from. There was a lot of emphasis on my body, the shape of my body, and how much I was eating and things of that nature. And my mother was very domineering, She's very controlling. I think personality-wise, we clashed in that way. And I'm the middle child. I have an older brother who stayed in England. And then I have a younger sister, 7 years younger than me. My brother's 12 years older than me. So I'm the middle kid. I was very sensitive, oversensitive. And yeah, I just kind of, that environment I found to be very stifling. There's a lot of, as I said, emphasis on my body, and I was just made aware of my body from a really early age.
Were your siblings
No,
struggling with it
not at
too?
all. So my brother has no
Not
weight
at all?
issues, never had a weight issue. My younger sister,
They were the types that could order or that they could
pretty
eat as much
much,
as they
and my
want and get
sister
away
had
with it?
problems keeping weight on. So she was one of those. She's always very skinny, very tiny.
Wow.
And growing up in kind of the 80s, at that time of year, and my parents are from the Caribbean, so kind of like that corporal punishment, like physical punishment, was a big thing. And I feel like I kind of got the majority of it, even though I was kind of the quieter kid. And one thing that stood out to me was, because my sister was very skinny and very tiny, my mother told my dad that he was not allowed to spank her. But there was no restriction on that for me. And that just kind of was a kind of a reinforcement of, I was, because of my body and because of my shape. Yeah, I
Singled
was,
out.
it was okay for me to be beaten, but not my little sister. So, I mean, we grew up 7 years apart in the same home, same mother,
Terrible.
same father, but we had very different upbringings, very different experiences growing up. So, yeah, that kind of was.
Yeah, I felt like I as a sibling of two younger sisters, I feel like me being the older one, for some reason, the next one was 6 years younger than me, but I felt like I was always treated different and parented different than those two. Like I was like, those two got spoiled and treated, like they got handed a silver spoon, and I was just kind of like the grunt, like already considered the black sheep, like from an early day
Yeah,
before I even did anything wrong. So I
absolutely.
can kind of
So
relate to
I
that.
also remember, like, at the age of about 11, my mom asked me if I wanted to dance. She was signing my sister up to dance, and she wanted to know if I wanted to dance too. And by that time, I was so self-conscious and my self-esteem was so eroded. I love dancing, and it would have, probably helped me with my confidence and gave me some physical activity and things like that. But I just couldn't even fathom being in front of people and just kind of like, performing that way. And my sister, she is now in her 40s. She dances to this day. She loves it. It's a great outlet for her. And she's just really used it to the max as far as, being a skill and an outlet and things like that. It's had a career based on dance and things like that. So I feel like I missed out on a lot in that respect. And that was kind of like at the age of 11. So it definitely is something that I've dealt with, and it's kind of really shaped me and affected how I show up in the world, things that I've tried to do, my level of confidence and things like that. So yeah, I remember being on diets when I was, a teenager, and I think my weight just kind of gone up and down and up and down. Sometimes I have a handle on it, sometimes I didn't. And I think
Do you think you were eating out of a depressed phase, like you were depressed and anxious, or were you eating because you were just strictly hungry, or do you think
there
there
was
was a
a
lot of
lot of
mental
mental
stuff
stuff going
going
on
on?
when I was younger. There was a lot of comfort eating. I was restricted from going outside a lot. So like during the summers in the States, well, this is the States. So like 3 months, it was 3 months long summer. So, I mean, I couldn't go anywhere. So I was just in the house and I was just eating, and that was it. And I would sometimes eat out of anger, eat out of boredom, it just all the emotions, and kind of food was kind of my only comfort. There was, yeah, that foundation was just kind of set, and I'd kind of always had that struggle for a really long time. And I think
And it carried into like your high
high
school years
school,
and college years?
college, something funny happened in college. Now, that was the first time I'd left home. So I went to the University of Houston. So we were in Arlington, Texas. So 4 hours away, and I got my first sense of freedom. And I remember for the first time, like, feeling happy and like experiencing happiness. And after my freshman year, I went home in the summer, and I don't know what happened, but I lost weight. I lost a significant amount of weight without any effort, without any trying, without dieting, which I'd done so many times before and so much before. Weight just fell off. And it had to be something emotionally related, because I remember there was definitely a turning point in my emotion, just feeling more free and less oppressed and just kind of able to be myself and express myself. So, but then, I mean, I got into my first relationship and then, again, emotional, whatever turmoil and all that, of course, is going to make my weight go up. So I do remember the periods of my life where I was my heaviest. Those were the times in my life where I struggled the most and I had the most emotional turmoil and the most difficulties and stress and things like that. Yeah, those connections are yeah, looking back, really understanding kind of where I was triggered and what the trajectory was after that. And it was always massive weight gain.
So you feel like that was like your only addiction you were going through at the time? Were there any other, say, substances or anything that were starting to appeal to you to kind of block out that food addiction or anything? Or were you kind of just
Strictly
strictly
food,
food?
I was kind of scared of everything else. That was kind of like and I didn't see it as addiction then. So even though it was something that I leaned on when I shouldn't have and indulged when I shouldn't have, um, alcohol, my first marriage, I believe my ex-husband was an alcoholic. And my father drank way too much. My mother called him an alcoholic, was functioning. You know what I mean? But he drank pretty much every day. So those were things that I was just like, no, don't want to mess with those. Don't want to, and I felt like, even though I didn't recognize my food addiction, I felt like I had an addictive personality. And I felt like if I got into this, I would probably get into it to the point where I was out of control.
Be hooked.
And drugs, I
Yeah.
came from like the egg in the frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. So I was just too scared, too afraid to
Yeah.
even,
I've seen that.
go there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think that's why food addiction can be so insidious because you just feel like, it's not a big deal, and you feel like, oh, it's a willpower thing, and it's something you should just be able to handle. And it
And it's not illegal and it doesn't get a
exactly,
lot of people in trouble,
exactly,
technically.
exactly. But I could just tell. I mean, it resulted
Exactly.
in a life that I didn't want. So I kind of struggled with why can't I control this?
What was 24 hours? What was 24 hours like in a day at your worst, would you say? What was it like? Wake up in the morning and how did you go about your meals? How much do you think you were eating and when and all that?
Yeah, I just always struggled. Always struggled. There was always a lot of anxiety. I would delay eating because I didn't know what to eat. I didn't know what would make the situation worse, meaning like put weight on. And so I would just delay until I was starving and then just kind of go through the house, and grab anything and everything that was kind of in my path. I don't think I was a binge eater to the extent that didn't have like massive portions in one sitting, but I could just continually eat and eat. And now know that I ate things that didn't nourish me, that didn't hit any of my hunger cues as far as like satiety. And so it's the things, those ultra processed foods, um, that were also always my drug of choice, so to speak. And those are the things that I could just really overindulge on a lot. So I would try to deny myself as long as possible, and then I would overindulge in the wrong things. Yeah, there's just a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. When I was in the States, I was in like drive-throughs were like, I was hitting up the drive-throughs and things like that. So yeah, it was just, there was not any specific, thing. It was just kind of a daily thing of just doing the wrong things and not really doing things that were beneficial to me. And there was just always that guilt and shame, guilt and shame.
And you're being shamed by people, the loved ones as well in your life and a lot of your relationships.
Yeah, mostly by my mother. Other people kind of like accepted me the way I was. Yeah, but it was always my mother. And even when I left home, kind of visiting her or when she would visit me, I would just go right back into that child mode again. And like when I moved back to the UK, my mom and dad would come and visit me at least once a year. And it would always set me on a spiral. after she left that visit. And sometimes I'd be in a good place where I, kind of had a handle on things. My weight was a little bit lower and she'd come and she'd just say some things and just do what she did. Then I'd be weeks and months struggling after they'd left and gone back to Texas. They'd stay with me about a month, 3 weeks to a month. And, they would leave and I would just be in a complete mess and trying to really claw my way back again.
Wow. So what do you think your mother, not that you need to share her story personally, but do you think she was going through anything personally that she was kind of using you as her scapegoat or punching bag just to kind of like, relieve some kind of trauma she may have
Yeah,
had, or
she
do you
had a
think there
lot
was
of
anything
trauma
there?
growing up. And she was number 9 of 15 children, I think, and 11 survived into adulthood. So she always said being the ninth child, by the time her mother had her, she just hated children and hated having children. And so
Hmm.
that type of anger that she described her mother as having towards her, I felt like that was directed towards me, even though I'm only like one of 3. But I just knew that there was something there that I wasn't responsible for. And that anger, what was directed towards me, I knew wasn't about me, and that really confused me. And I was just like, why do you hate me? Because, like I said, I have a little sister and an older brother, and it's just like I don't get it. So I feel like I don't know, maybe if she saw herself in me, or I don't know what it was, but yeah, it's definitely trauma that she was reenacting and kind of taking out on me.
Wow. I'm sorry. That's tough. How did your relationship with her, did it ever improve over
It
time?
improved a lot
I mean,
when
as
I
you got
left home.
older, did
But it was kind of on the surface because there were things that I needed to delve into and address with her. But when she talked about my older brother and my younger sister, who also had their complaints, because, most kids have their complaints about how they were raised, she would say that they were lying, or she would say that she didn't remember. So I felt like with what I went through, the additional devastation that I would feel if she would tell me that I was a liar, or if she didn't remember, would have been crushing to me. But there were questions that I really needed to ask. She died in 2022 and she had dementia. So even in those later years, there was a time even before she passed away that I felt like I can't even ask the question now because, I mean, she's not even really herself anymore. Her mind's not there anymore. But there should have been a lot more questioning on my part. But I was just one of those. Again, I went back into child mode when I dealt with her. So even though our relationship was better, meaning she couldn't beat me anymore, but I just still went into that swallowing my emotions, not saying much, not speaking up for myself. That was just kind of always there. Whereas my brother and my younger sister could be more vocal and challenge her and even bring up things of the past and things like that. I just was
yeah.
too afraid of the response, and I thought the response would just be kind of like salt in a wound. So I just didn't go there.
Okay. As time progressed and everything, when did you realize you kind of hit like a rock bottom with food and everything? And when did it kind of just all come to a halt and you're just like, I need to change? What went through your head
Well,
that day?
it was as I said, it was a constant battle. So I was always up and down and up and down. She passed away in May of 2022, and thank
Sorry
you.
for your loss.
But and I struggle with that too because even though I grieve the loss of my mother, I'd always had in my mind that when she went, I would be free and I would have this sense of freedom. And that's weird. You know what I mean? Like you're supposed to not want to
Hmm.
see your mother go. You know what I mean? That's like the most devastating loss that a lot of people have to go through. So I'm still always kind of in two minds about it, but she passed away and she had dementia. She also had diabetes and she was overweight, but she wasn't as overweight as I was. She was like, like kind of like old people overweight, 20 pounds, 25 pounds, that kind of thing. I was 100 plus pounds overweight. I was the most
Yeah.
obese person in my family. I'm the most overweight person in my family.
How much did you weigh at your worst?
And I'm 5'7".
You said, okay.
So during that time, well, after lockdown and things like that, that's kind of where my highest weight before that was 250. Then I went into lockdown. I think I went into lockdown around 230 something, came out of lockdown 265. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. So somewhere between, actually it was in October. It was in October, the beginning of October, where I just decided that I have to do something, and I have to do something drastic, because before it was just dieting, just a diet, dieting, and then losing something, and then struggling to maintain it, and then ultimately gaining again. So I took myself off to Turkey to have the gastric sleeve. I reached out to some doctors and things like that here in the UK several times over the years, and I got all kinds of really stupid advice, like eat 800 calories a day. And as much of a dieter as I am, I know that's not even sustainable, nor is it healthy. And you know, you can't diet like that. Another GP said, "Oh, well, you're not too bad. Just make sure you don't gain any more weight." And I'm just like, if I knew how to control it, I wouldn't even be asking for help. So I was like, I have to take this into my own hands. I've dealt with this my entire life, so I have to do something drastic. And that was the most drastic thing I could think of. And so I did it, and I lost 70 pounds. And then I started to gain the weight back. And I've been in forums where people have had those surgeries and they've gained all of their weight back. So I knew that that was a potential. But if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a strategy, if you don't even know what maintenance is or how to navigate it, even something as drastic as a gastric sleeve is just another diet. It's just another crash diet, because, the kind of the easy part is the losing the weight. It's the maintenance part that people don't plan for, understand. They just don't get it. So, and that's where I just had to start understanding, why am I constantly doing something that is having such devastating effects on my health? So it was my joints, it was my digestion, it was brain fog, it was my sleep, it was my skin. Like, all of these things were just, and of course my A1C was going up. So I was on the road to diabetes. I had fatty liver that had been diagnosed. So it's just, I'm like, why? This doesn't make any sense. Why am I constantly doing something that I know is damaging to me, and it's killing me slowly? Why can't I stop? Why can't I stop? This just doesn't make any sense. If these things are bad
Yeah.
for me and I can see the physical effects of them, why can't I stop? So that's when the penny started to drop. As to, it's just like, this has to be an addiction, because it's like, I don't want to be fat. I do not want to be fat. I hate living in that body and having to navigate the
Yeah.
world showing up that way. So why can't I just get it together? And people will tell you, just eat less and move more. If it was that simple, it would be done. You know what I mean? There would be no fat people. But
Yeah.
it was those things that I was
Yeah.
hooked on, and that I'd always go back to. And there's a slippery slope, and I had to understand what my triggers were that would take me along that road and that progression.
That was my next question. What were your triggers? And do
Yeah,
triggers
yes,
still
they
happen?
definitely do. Well, one big trigger was not being able to relate well with my mother. Of course, so she's passed away. So that's kind of like a trigger out of the way, but still, those memories, or putting myself in a situation where I feel like, she's on my shoulder, or her voice is in my ear, or something like that. Someone will say something to me, or I feel like I'm being judged in a certain way, and it just takes me back to that childhood mode. And then I reach for something, and I want to eat something, because I want to feel better. And I want to, feel okay and get that comfort, or that dopamine hit, or whatever it is that food gives me. So, um, and then it's just kind of casually eating the wrong things. Like, every now and again, I want, maybe a burger or something like that. Well, wheat is like very problematic for me. And it just kind of sets me on a trajectory to want more and more and more and more. So before, I didn't know what to do instead of. Now I know how to fuel my body in a way that will not cause me to crave things that are problematic. So I had to figure that out. And all the diets that I'd been on, I'd never made that connection. I just thought, oh, you eat everything in moderation, it'll be fine. There's some things that I just have to avoid completely. And I know that they are detrimental to me, and I can't control it. So I have to kind of figure out other things. and kind of get a handle on my emotions. And I kind of am now able to pull back when I'm feeling out of control or I'm feeling injured or wounded or emotionally fragile. I can be still now. I don't have to reach for anything. I don't have to eat anything. I can just be still, um, and feel those feelings and process them and figure out, where it's coming from. What am I going to do about it? What can I do about it? They're just different things that I do. I don't reward myself with food anymore. They say, why are you rewarding yourself with food? You're not a dog. We shouldn't be needing treats.
I know. I used to do that with alcohol. Like if I went for a good workout or run in the morning, I used to be like, since I did this healthy thing, I can reward myself with
Mm-hmm,
5 drinks.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get it. That would just keep my addiction going, even though if I was trying to be
Exactly,
healthy.
exactly. So cheat meals, cheat days, and things like that, I don't plan those into anything. If there's an instance where I'm eating something that's not necessarily on plan, I'll say, okay, I'll eat this at this point. I don't let cravings overcome me either. So I do have some things every now and again, but I know how to get back on track. Before there was no getting back on track. It was just all about moderation and trying to eat small bits of what I wanted occasionally. Now I largely avoid, and then I know exactly how to get back on the wagon, basically. So the goal is to just like leave those things alone entirely. I'm not quite there yet, but the awareness and the understanding of how the spiral starts and where it starts is everything for me in trying to make better choices and do things differently so I don't end up in the place I was in before.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I have an interesting question for you, but what does sobriety from food addiction look like for you since food's one of those things we can't actually abstain
That's
from?
true.
That's I just thought about that while I was hearing you talk, and I was like, it's like all these episodes I've done about drugs and alcohol and stuff, and it's like, yeah, we can cut those out and live a much happier, healthy life, but you have to eat to survive. So what's that
Right.
like for you? Is that frustrating? Does it require a ton of self-control when you're dealing with those triggers? Like,
It
what's that like?
doesn't require as much self-control when I know now that I know how to fuel myself properly. So when you are focusing on nutrient dense foods and real food as opposed to processed crap, that's the stuff you can avoid. So, no one's addicted to broccoli. No one's addicted to apples. No one's addicted to chicken breast. You know what I mean? Those are the things and
Yeah.
things in those categories. Those are the things that should be the staples and the foundation of how we nourish ourselves. The cakes, the cookies, the pies, the donuts, the chips, those are non-essentials, completely not essential. So those things can completely be cut out. But because they're all around us, it's a little bit more difficult. So I don't think of it as like a food addiction, like I can't eat anything. There are just certain things. And those are the things, they're made to be addictive. They are made to be addictive. So, and now I'm hearing that they're in the lab now trying to, um, they're coming up with foods that will override the effects of GLP-1 medications. So one day there'll be a Dorito that you cannot stop eating, even if you're on, Manjaro or Ozempic or whatever. So if we as a
Yeah.
society don't understand that natural foods are what we need to consume in order to be healthy and in order to free ourselves from that addiction, then, we're going to be in trouble. So that's kind of how I look at it. Um, yeah, there are some things that I do absolutely avoid, and there are some things that I can eat as much as I want to, but you don't wanna overindulge in those things, so they're just they have their own kind of fail-safe kind of, mechanism to them because they're the natural human diet that we should.
Yeah. So say say recently you had what you'd consider a slip up. How do you handle that without spiraling? Like, what kind of thoughts do you put in your head to just make sure it does not carry on into something worse?
In my head, I'm like, "Okay, I've gotta reset. I've had, a couple of days of kind of wobbling, let me reset." And so before, a reset used to be starving myself as punishment and not eating anything. Now a reset looks like, okay, mornings, and I usually don't eat breakfast. When I'm resetting, in the mornings, I'm fueling myself healthy protein. So that's gonna be salmon, that's gonna be eggs, that's gonna be maybe some leftover chicken. It's just gonna be some good, healthy protein, and that and I'm going to eat that as much as I want to until I'm full. And so those signals now will tell me that I'm good. I'm not jittery anymore. My blood sugar is stable and I can make better choices. And that can carry me through an entire day. And I'm like, okay, that's a win. Okay, so let's do it again the next day. And so at that point, when your blood sugar is no longer spiking and crashing, you have much more control. You have much more understanding of what will stabilize you and what you can do to just move forward and continue making better choices. So it's usually environmental. Those are the reasons that I kind of slip up
Yeah.
and then just getting control, trying to get my body back into a stabilization mode with, again, starting with protein early in the day and continuing that kind of, you know, gets me back on track.
Okay. So speaking of what you're doing today, like what are you doing today as far as taking a look at Sculptique and all that stuff? What's going on? How are you doing this to stay recovered and stay on track and helping others and all that
Okay,
stuff?
so
Let's
I
hear
was one of
about it.
those people that thought, oh, when I get to my goal weight, I have to incorporate something into my life that's going to help me stay on track. So, a lot of people lose a lot of weight and they become personal trainers. But me, I hate exercise.
Oh, I've heard it's like us in addiction.
There
We
you
all become addiction
go.
counselors or something,
Yeah.
or start a podcast.
So, because I hate exercise, I was like, okay, maybe not a personal trainer. That's not really going to work. And plus, I still have a long way to go as far as like, building muscle and things like that after excessive weight loss. But I started a body sculpting business. So I help people get rid of stubborn fat, tighten loose skin, smooth out cellulite, and I am the face of my business. So it's kind of put myself in a hot seat, but at the same time it keeps me accountable. And I also help people. A lot of people come to me with the same issues that I have and had. And so I'm able to also help them in kind of suggesting and navigating kind of how I've moved forward and kind of dealt with some of the triggers and the issues that I had. I'm also getting a coaching diploma in health and wellness to specifically and more closely help people in that maintenance phase because I feel like that there's not enough support for people in that area. So the body sculpting business has people coming to me and looking at me going, okay, I wanna look like you. Well, let me tell you what I've done to get there. Let me tell you how, the entire process. So it does keep me, as I said, accountable and I want to look appealing for my brand and I want to be an example for people that want to make a change. But I want to encourage people the right way and a healthy way. I'm not against GLP-1s. I'm not against bariatric surgery, but you have to have a plan for afterwards and you can't depend on those things long term because there are failure rates.
Yeah, I've heard things about people losing all that weight, but then being frustrated with like the excess skin and there are repercussions to losing that much weight after being overweight for so long. So I just know that basically you started to figure out ways and tools to improve that, and you thought like, okay, maybe I can help
Yes.
other people do
So
that too.
I did struggle with that a little bit when I got to my goal weight. You kind of beat yourself up a bit thinking, okay, I have this great accomplishment that I've done, but then I've got this loose skin that, i- is stopping me from celebrating and really, you know, leaning into that win as much as I could. But that's vanity. That's the aesthetics of it. I mean, and it is real. Like loose skin will not kill you the way obesity will. You know what I mean? It won't kill you at all, but obesity definitely will. So you have to look at it, to put it into perspective, first of all. Secondly, the weight that you had on you, it might not have been your fault, but it is your responsibility. You ate that every bite, that got you there, you put in your mouth yourself. So that is just a reality check that you have to just kind of deal with. Okay, yes, there is going to be loose skin when you have been obese for a significant amount of time, depending on the age that you are when you've lost that weight. That's just kind of it goes with the territory. So it bothers me that I hear people, kind of moan about their loose skin, and it's just like, can we like, put this into perspective here? You were obese. That was going to really, give you a miserable life. Loose skin, it's inconvenient, it's annoying.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and it can be
Yeah.
dealt with. So the body sculpting that I do can't necessarily get rid of excessive loose skin. And it does help if you're on a weight loss journey to body sculpt along the way to minimize some of that damage at the end. Because if you wait till the end, of course, then it's excessive. So as you tighten, if you tighten as you go, it's a little bit better. But it's just one of those things that
Okay.
it's life, you know, it is life. That damage is done. And healing takes years. And we have this kind of microwave mentality. We think we want everything done really, really quickly. So weight loss can be quick with bariatric surgery and with
Hmm.
GLP-1s. And then you got the loose skin. Well, in at year 1 of weight
Yeah.
loss
Your body
and
can't keep up with
year
that.
5 of weight loss, that loose skin is not going to look the same depending on what you do. But you have to, you know, stay the course and keep going. And there can be a bit of improvement, but people don't want to wait for that. They're just like, I need it off now. You know, it's like it didn't take you 5 minutes to gain the weight.
Yeah. They want the
Exactly.
results fast.
Exactly.
You're like, you already went through this much trouble to lose that weight. And you're just like, I want the results. I want to look like how I wanted to look when I imagined, the before and after. And it's like, no, there's still, not repercussions necessarily, but just like there's still going to be lingering
Exactly.
consequences from
Exactly. They're
the
like
weight
battle
gain
scars. I
initially. Or,
mean, it's just
yeah.
like
So
it's
that's tough.
there. And I do have to have
Yeah.
those types of conversations with clients because it's just like, okay, we can do some things, we can't do everything. And so
Hmm.
you can go the drastic route and have surgery. And even then, I mean, that still has to be maintained. And that, there's massive risk in that. So everything has kind of like a trade-off. So you either deal with it and we, do it
Yeah.
the
I
kind
mean,
of gentler way, or you do the more drastic route. It all has, things to consider.
yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, even just, we as alcohol and drug addicts who I talked a lot about on the show, we have different kinds of repercussions. Sometimes it's health related, letting our livers re-improve, but we're still in and out of the doctor for months and years after we quit drinking or using. And not only that, but like, the amends we have to make, all the damage we cause with other people and stuff. So there's always, with any addiction, I feel like there's any kind of lingering consequences that just don't go away as quickly as
Absolutely.
you
And
want
with
them
weight
to.
loss, you think, okay, the weight's gone, the problem's fixed. No, especially if you have that weight on for decades, that recovery period is going to be at least years long. So if you're not in it for the long haul, if you want a quick fix, it's probably not going to last.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it requires a lot of patience. Yeah, just like this, because yeah. So I mean, just because you lose the weight doesn't mean you're not going to have to deal with the excess skin. So I notice, like it says on your page, you help women reconnect to their bodies. Do you specifically work with women? Do you
I
work with
do
men
work with
too? How
men.
does that work?
So we have to kind of like, pick our target audience, right? So I think generally it's women that struggle more. I think kind of men can get away with a little bit more, but I do have men that have had weight loss and wanted to kind of tighten loose skin and things like that along their journey and at the end of their journeys. I've had a couple men to come in kind of I had one gentleman, bless him. He came in, he was in some sort of denial about his health. So he was just like, I asked him if he was stressed. He said no. I could see stress on him. I could see, the body type. He had a lot of visceral fat, very large belly. And the type of fat that I deal with in my body sculpting is subcutaneous fat. So I had to, have that real discussion with them to say, okay, yeah, we can do a little something here. And you will see visible change, but what you're dealing with, and I can tell the difference in how it feels. Visceral fat is very firm. It's usually higher up. Subcutaneous fat is kind of lower belly. It's squidgy and it's soft. And he had sleep apnea. He was a smoker. He was a drinker. Didn't eat very well. And he's talking about, yeah, I'm getting back in the gym and things like that. And I'm like, baby, you got to do a little bit more than that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
you have to have those real conversations because I mean, people will be, they want to be fixed. They want to be helped and they'll throw money at you if you continue to steer them in the wrong direction. And then they'll be disappointed at the end. And I'm like, that's not how I'm going to get my bag because it's just like, my conscience won't let me do that. I would rather tell him, this is what you need to work on. Come back in 6 months or a year when you have, made some more changes and you're seeing those results. But this is what is going to get you where you want to go, not body sculpting at this time, unless you're already on that path. So he's like, oh, okay. And I feel like I did the right thing in that, you know, maybe he needed to hear that. Maybe somebody needed to tell that to him. And it's one of those things where it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it needs to be said, especially with things like sleep apnea. Those things are, they're signs that there are things going wrong. And of course he filled out his medical questionnaire. No problems. And then while he was on the table, oh yeah, well, last year I was having seizures and I was in the emergency room a few times. And I'm like, bro, you shouldn't even be here. Yeah. So yeah, they're definitely, yeah, men, it's anybody that wants to just kind of feel better about themselves. So that's why I like to help people along their journeys, because those small little visual improvements help people, encourage them to keep moving in the right direction. And it makes them a little bit more mindful about what they're doing. And so I don't just, say, come in and I'll wave this wand around on you and everything will be great. You have to put in the work in between sessions so we're not undoing what we've done here in the studio, so it goes hand in hand. So there is some responsibility on their part. It's not just aesthetic, it's non-surgical, it's non-invasive. So they have to support their goals with the right lifestyle.
So this brings me to my next question. It's pretty common amongst people who go into, say, rehabilitation for drugs and alcohol. Like, do you encounter a lot of people that are coming to your program with pressure from family and they don't want to come in for themselves? They're just doing it because they feel like they have to because of other people suggesting it, or they kind of come in denial?
Yeah, they
Does that ever
not
happen?
from pressure from the outside. A lot of some people don't want anybody to know that they're having body sculpting treatments. I'm just like, what's the big deal? But they're in denial. A lot of them are
Yeah.
in denial about their habits. And they are of the moderation mindset. Oh, I can have a little bit. Oh, I can have a treat. And it's like, baby, you're wearing your treats. You know what I'm saying? I can see your treats. So, and it's not how you want to look.
Yeah.
So if that is causing a result that you don't want, then you have to look at those habits. And people want to hear good news about their bad habits. So when I say this is what wheat does to me and I found out I had to cut it out. Oh, I don't eat bread. I don't eat bread. Baby, you're eating something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because, that excess weight is saying that there is something going on there that's not agreeing with your body. And I don't want to say that they're doing bad things. Something is not agreeing with you, because some people can't eat bread with no problem, but something is not agreeing with you. And I feel like weight is a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, and you have to figure out exactly what is going on. Your body's crying out. Your body does not want to be overweight.
Exactly.
Your body doesn't want to be
And it's
huffing and
specific
puffing
to
going
each person.
upstairs. You know what I mean? There are things that we should be able to do naturally, and in a healthy way. So yeah, there's a lot of denial. A lot of denial. I don't eat that much. I hardly eat anything at all. Really? Are you sure? So and
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
and they don't know my history when they come in. So I have to go into my history, and then
Yeah.
things start to come out. They're a little bit.
And they're like,
There you
oh, I
go. There
can't
you
pull
go.
this lady.
So I don't look with a judgmental eye, but I'm looking with a critical eye. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah. And you can relate
exactly.
to a lot of what they say. You're like, I was there.
Exactly.
I was in
And
that
so
position. Yeah.
that's kind of, the difference in food addiction and other types of addiction. Sometimes you can mask those other things, but food addiction for a lot of people it manifests physically. Now there are some people that, have eating disorders and things like that. They may be quite slim, but for the most part, food addiction is something that you can really see on someone. So when they're saying, "Oh, I don't eat that much and I have a really good diet," and I'm like, "Come on now, come on." Let's pick this apart. What do you call a good diet? What are you saying? What is
Yeah.
healthy in your opinion? And then we start peeling back the layers, and they're like, "Well, maybe the chocolates. Oh, I like some cookies." I'm like, "Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I don't have that much, not that often." well, your stomach's telling me something else. So, and I think in the state that they're in, because they're coming there about parts of their body that they don't like or they're ashamed of, or things like that. Well, and with me, they have to expose them. So it's like, okay, let's start working on that stomach. So I think they already feel quite vulnerable. And then I have to tell them my story and tell them where I've been. And a lot of them are critical of themselves, and they are not even as bad as I was. So when they know that, they kind of relax a little bit and they're able to be a little bit more forthcoming. And I don't bash them or anything, but I do give them some real talk, so I had to say, really, are you sure? And then I relate it back to me and say, well, when I was in this situation, then okay, well, yeah, I kind of do a bit of that and a bit of this. So it does help to have walked
Yeah,
in those shoes for a while.
I bet. So, say I was somebody who approached you, through your business, and was just, how do you start like asking them questions to kind of get a feel for what they're going through, what they want, what their goals are? Like, what's your
Well,
initial
my first
approach to
question
everything?
is, what is your area of concern? What's bothering you? What are you dealing with? And 9 out of 10 people, it's my stomach. And I have a lot of women that are perimenopausal, postmenopausal. So of course, when the hormones go out of whack, that the belly fat kind of really is one of those things that really starts to act up. So I asked them, okay, so where were you before and what are you trying to get to? What goal do you have in mind? And just kind of tell me a little bit about how long you've been struggling and what do you want to achieve here, in this session or in these sessions. So we just kind of have an open conversation regarding where they are and where they'd like to go. I let them know how I can support them, and I try to give it to them as realistically as possible because, as I said, people don't want to think that it's their fault. They want to think that it's something outside of themselves that has caused this. They feel like, oh, I've tried everything. Well, yeah, you've tried everything, but you've not tried the right things. And a lot of us have fallen victim to kind of the fad diet, food labeling, everything has protein on it now, even when they already had protein in it, you know what I mean? Or, or these bars, these protein bars and things
Yeah.
like that. And it's all processed rubbish and it doesn't help and it's not going to get you closer to your goals. And so when we kind of have those conversations and break down those barriers a little bit, they're like, oh, okay, and you see things start to sink in, and I think I try to just give them things to go away and think about, or things to challenge me on. I mean, I welcome that
It,
too because I don't know everything, and I'm still on my journey. So it's like if you have feedback for me, I welcome that. So
and they can help you learn too and keep growing your business
exactly,
and improving it with their feedback,
yeah,
I assume.
yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people come in, just even hearing your backstory and stuff, people come in needing more help with just the physical aspects, but needing help with a lot of what the battles they're fighting mentally. Do you ever suggest, say, counseling on top of the work they're putting in with you,
absolutely,
or how does that work?
absolutely. Because there's some things that you can't just fix with, changing your behavior. So if there are things that really need to be unpicked and unpacked regarding their past experiences, trauma, and things like that, that's a big question. Like, what kind of mental health help are you getting? Have you looked into that? How are you dealing with that? Yeah, that's definitely in there because I mean that's kind of the basis of my issues. So I know it's obesity is like multi-layered, you know what I mean? There's so many different ways and factors that go into it that you can't ignore just one. And even if it's just kind of like a more of a present type of issue, I mean, you have to look at someone's sleep, you have to look at their activity level, you have to look at their stress levels. There are so many things that can go into, even if people are doing all the right things, what they think are the right things, meaning, okay, the kitchen, I've got everything right in the kitchen, but it's just not shifting. Are you
Yeah.
sleeping at night? Well, I go to sleep at 2 o'clock and then I have to get up at 5. And it's like, well, it's not gonna shift. It's not gonna move.
Sleep is for
Exactly.
metabolism, right?
Exactly. So there are a lot of, a,
Yeah.
a lot of things that have to be considered. So, and that's where the coaching element comes in also, because we look at it kind of like a 360 lifestyle kind of picture in order to kind of delve into what really could be holding someone back from getting to their goals. And it's more than just food.
That brings me to my next question, a few closing questions. In what ways has this recovery helped in other areas of your life besides starting sculpting and all that? But like, in what other ways has things improved?
Well, just having more confidence, basically. So, I mean, I've been on, I had a business before and I've tried kind of business before, but kind of that showing up element, it was just like, I do not want to be seen. I do not want to, be the face of anything, essentially. So now I'm
Yeah.
just like, look, at the age that I am, I mean, this is as good as it gets. So, and I just having energy levels to be able to go after those goals and put in the mental energy that it takes to get something off the ground and keep it going, kind of just trying to navigate the world of business, figuring out, when it's just you have to wear all the hats and you have to kind of, do things that you've never done. I mean, as far as accounting and marketing and all that kind of stuff, I just would not have had it in me before. I would have just kind of gotten frustrated and thrown in the towel because, I mean, just the exhaustion, um, in addition to the physical exhaustion, the mental exhaustion, and just not being where I wanted to be. That's just, it just took up room in my head. You know what I mean? And if I'm on a task and I'm wondering, "Ooh, what should I eat?" and kind of trying to figure out what's going to be beneficial as opposed to what's going to be detrimental, that again, that used to live rent free in my head all the time. And it took up so much space. So now I can just do a lot more and think a lot freer and, I feel like the world is my oyster now. And so I have so much more courage to just do things that I've never done and yeah, accomplish things. I went like, I'm kind of getting into like fitness, experimental fitness things because as I said, I hated exercise, but I know that I need to entertain myself a little bit more in exercise. So I've done a pole dancing class. I've done aerial hoop. I did a bungee class. I never would have done those things before. So just getting out there and just, being more
Yeah.
physical and more active. Yes,
Freedom.
it's really liberating. So yeah,
I bet. Just like when we overcome any other addictions to drugs and alcohol, it's like you just start to realize you're capable of doing so much more with your day. And things that I used to look at that were so intimidating, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can wake up and I can do this now and feel satisfied and feel like I'm capable.
absolutely.
So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So what advice would you give to someone who's just realizing they have a problem with food? What advice would you give? Or somebody out there struggling right now with food addiction?
I'd ask them what kind of support they're getting because it is not something that you can do in isolation. I mean, and there's a lot of shame that happens with obesity, kind of behind closed doors, and it keeps you isolated. Where is your network? Where is your support system? Have you got one? Do you want one? That kind of thing is because it's like you need like people that have been those pathways that are also on that road that know more than you that you can also support because that's helpful. I mean, I used to be a teacher and what really solidified my understanding was explaining something to somebody else. And that really helped me kind of, nail it down as far as my understanding of things. So just supporting other people also helps you, on that road. And it also gives you that confidence that you know what you're doing and you are going in the right direction. So I think having a network and having support is the biggest thing. And then secondly, what's your plan? You have to have a plan. You have to want to address this on a long-term basis. It's not a quick thing. So yeah, have a plan, have a network. Those are my two biggest pieces of advice.
That's great advice. No, I really appreciate it. If your story reaches one person struggling, what do you hope they hear?
I hope they hear that they're not alone. I hope that they hear that they don't have to be stuck. They don't have to stay stuck. There is a way out and that it's not their fault, but going forward is their responsibility and fixing it is their responsibility. I want them to not their recovery and into somebody else's hands. It's in their hands. It's 100% in their hands. And it's based on decisions that they're making on a daily, hourly basis. It's on them. It's all on you. You get that support and get that help, but it is your responsibility. And no one is coming to save you. You have to do this for yourself. You have to want it for yourself, and it's possible and it's doable. So I want them to have hope.
I appreciate that response. You're sharing your story has been incredible. I really appreciate it. What's a good way for people to reach you if they want to work with you, or if they want to ask you questions, or based on what they've heard today? What's all the places on social media, your website, all
Well,
that stuff?
I guess everything is kind of through my business. My business is Sculptique UK, Shrewsbury. I'm in the UK, but my website is.
You got a lot of listeners in the UK.
My website is www.sculptique.uk. And I can be emailed at arlene@sculptique. Yeah, my coaching business is currently under development. I'm coming up with programs and courses for people in the maintenance phase. So the shame of, and the embarrassment of being on GLP-1s and having bariatric surgery and people calling it cheating and all that kind of stuff, that's BS. And I want to support people that are taking those steps and taking those bold steps to really get their health under control and be in the driver's seat of their life and their outcomes. So I'm here for them. So reach out to me.
All right, sounds good. And one final question. What is 24-hour period look like today for you now that you've kind of overcame your addiction with food and all that stuff, and you seem very blessed to be where you're at today, to be able to be in the position to help others? Like, what's a day look like now that you're on a better path?
A day.
I asked this to all addicts and alcoholics and stuff, so I'm curious what the answer would be.
24 hours. It's rising early in the morning without difficulty, waking up without pain, kind of joint pain, back pain, without brain fog, just, opening my eyes and not taking an hour to get out of bed. It's fueling myself healthfully and happily and kind of having energy levels that sustain me throughout the entire day. I don't need a nap during the day. I don't have that afternoon slump. And yeah, I'm getting shit done. I'm doing achieving my goals.
Good.
I'm coming up with new things all the time. Yeah, and I'm just getting after it. 24 hours is good. It's really good because, the future is bright and I'm running in the right direction. So yeah.
Like you said, the world is your oyster. I mean, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to now, nothing holding you back. So that's
Absolutely.
awesome. Any other final words you'd like to say to my listeners out there that are struggling?
I just want to say, just keep going. Don't give up. I mean, I know that there have been, a million ways and kind of, attempts that people have made, even if you have tried so many times, you're worth another try. And that's what I told myself. I said, I'm never going to give up. I mean, and I, even when I didn't know what I was doing and I felt like this umpteenth attempt was going to fail, I said, at a point, I said, I'm not giving up on myself. I don't care how many times I have to try. I'm going to keep trying. So just keep going, keep learning and keep trying. And yeah, you're going to get there. Definitely going to get there.
Well, I really, really am grateful for you coming on the show today and talking about everything. I mean, just bringing new subjects to this podcast is huge, so listeners understand that recovery and addiction and all the things associated with it go beyond just drugs and alcohol. There's so many different things that people have to learn to overcome, so this is really huge that you came on.
Thank you so much for bringing this to light and just kind of, giving people, that information that there are just other things that can be, stifling. And there's so much shame and stigma around, what people are doing, and just having that validation that, they're not struggling alone and it's a common problem. It's amazing that you just kind of, gave this a voice. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.